All right, dating can feel like you're in a maze, blindfolded, running around, hitting your head against the walls, bumping into things, right? Maybe you're having a time where you're just like asking the same boring questions over and over again, like, "Hey, what do you like to do? What's your favorite color? Where are you from?" And you're like, "Is this getting me anywhere? Why am I having these conversations?" Instead, you want to be asking pointed questions that actually get you somewhere. And is this going somewhere? What's the meaning behind this question? How can I figure out if this is a great guy for me to date or whether I should just like run the other direction? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I hope you are excited. I'm excited to be here. And so we're going to be talking about 7 questions, great questions that you should ask a man in early dating. Some of these you can even ask before you go on the first date. Like the first one here is a great question to avoid frustration, avoid some anger, avoid some confusion and expectations that are misaligned and all that kind of stuff. And it's this one: how often do you think it makes sense to talk to someone when you're dating? Or the same question is, how often do you like to talk to someone when you're in a relationship? And let me tell you why, right? This is one of the most confusing things that most women come to me with. They don't know how often this guy wants to talk to them. They don't know what makes sense. And everybody has a different idea, right? They've actually done some studies on this, and they found that even in relationships, only 41% of couples in relationships talk to each other on a daily basis. Only 28% actually talk to each other more than once, message each other, not just talk, but like message each other, like when they're messaging. They only message each other, 28% of them message each other more than once while they're in a relationship. So most people don't message each other at least once a day while they're in a relationship. And there's a lot of different people that have different expectations around this. Some people, they want to message each other all the time, some, every once in a while, some every couple of days, some once a week. You don't know. He doesn't know how it is for you. And so the absolute best thing that you can do is get on the same page with him. This is something I call the communication blueprint. And here's how it works. This is one of the most important things you can find out. It'll save you so much heartache and frustration and I don't know what's going on, all that kind of stuff, by just asking him, having a conversation with him and asking, like, how often do you like to talk to someone when you're dating? How often do you like to message with someone while you're dating? Anything like that, right? And I have a bunch of different ways to like get into that conversation, but all you really need to do is just ask it. You can talk about other people and what they do. Oh, I have this friend and they're like, they love to just talk all the her and his her boyfriend, or her and this guy that they're dating. It's like they talk to each other all day long. Like, what do you think about that? Right. And then he tells you what he thinks. Usually that's too much, or whatever. Maybe he doesn't care. And you're like, well, what do you think? Like, how often do you like to talk to someone when you're dating them or in a relationship? You probably want to do each one of those separately, like dating one time, and then you have a conversation about that, and then relationship after that, right? And have a conversation about that. Why do you do this? Because then you find out what's normal. And then you're not like, if the guy doesn't message you for a day, I can't tell you how many women message or contact me and they're like, I haven't talked to him in a whole day. What do I do, Matt? It's like my world is falling apart. And I'm like, just chill out, right? Like, you gotta, like, some people, they don't try to talk. Most people don't talk to each other every day, even in a relationship, or at least message each other every day, even in a relationship. And so you want to find out what it is for him. What is it for this guy? Right. And then you can have a conversation about what you want, what makes you feel special, what makes you feel taken care of, what makes you feel loved. And you can talk to him about it, and you can work out, you can get on the same page, get aligned, and then if he's doing something and it's normal for him, it's not a big deal for you anymore, because you're like, yeah, he doesn't talk every day, or, he's talking to you all the time and you're like, hey, I really need you to chill out with all this conversation. I don't like talking that much. Right. And so, does this make sense with you guys? Do you get what I'm saying? Tell me if you get it. Tell me in the chat. Tell me in the chat that you get it. If you don't get it, you can ask me any questions you want to. I'm going to be going over question and answer here in a little bit. So number 2, the second one is understanding what makes him feel connected to you. This is vitally, vitally important. And if you don't do this in the dating phases, which is okay if you don't, although I recommend that you do, you definitely want to do this once you're in a relationship. And here's the question. Here's what you want to ask is, what is something that makes you feel loved when you're in a relationship? Right. So there's a lot of research and stuff that's done on this. There's a big book that came out a while ago, The 5 Love Languages. It's huge. You probably have heard about it. It sold like millions of copies and stuff. And what they found is that it's really important to connect with a person's needs, right? And everybody has a different way that makes them feel loved or makes them feel connected to someone. And it's important that you don't just think that, oh, what I feel like men should, maybe you like receiving gifts, for instance, and, that's not his love language, right? Like when I was growing up, my father was a gift giver, right? Like that's the only way he understood about how to show his love. He didn't hug, he didn't talk about it, right? The only thing that he ever did was he gave gifts, right? And like receiving gifts is like the lowest on my scale of what I like, right? I'm a big physical touch. I'm a words of affirmation kind of guy, which, by the way, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you want to give me any compliments, I love compliments. So feel free to give me compliments anytime. So anyway, the point is that, I grew up and he was giving me all these gifts and I was like, does my dad even love me? Like, I don't know, because he's giving me all these things and I don't care about all this stuff. What I want is for him to tell me that he loves me. What I want is for him to hug me, right? And it's often the same in relationships where two people, they don't, if you don't understand how or what makes the other person feel loved, it can actually like destroy your relationship. And so you want to have a conversation about this, right? Don't just rely on the love languages thing. Find out actual individual things that makes them feel loved or makes them feel connected or anything like that, because what you want is specifics, right? Because maybe acts of service is yours, but really what it is you like it when a guy helps put your jacket on you before you go out. Or maybe what you really like is when a guy, like for breakfast, he goes out and gets some breakfast and brings it to you, or he cooks breakfast for you, right? It's very specific what it is that you like. And it might be very specific what it is that he likes. And so you want to find out what that is, right? And they found that there's researchers found that around 70% of men feel the most connected in their relationships when their emotional needs are specifically being considered. And so it's important that you find out what his emotional needs are. If you're really interested in the emotional needs model, you can check out some of my programs. And so that's what you want to do, is you want to find out what's going on with him. Ask him what makes him feel connected, what makes him feel loved, what makes him feel, like he wants to be around somebody, or, gets that warm, fuzzy feeling inside of him and makes him feel really, really good about you. You might want to find that stuff out. So, okay. Number 3, let's go over number 3 here, which is knowing what his values are around cheating. This is one of the most important things that you can do around this, because you need to get on the same page around cheating, right? What is cheating? And basically what you want to do is ask him, what do you consider cheating to be, right? Because lots of people have different ideas about this. Let me give you some examples here. So there was some research done on this, and they found that 52% of people consider emotional connection. So, if you build like an emotional connection with another man, right? where you're like laughing and, you're talking to him about your problems, and, you're connecting with him in an emotional way. 52% of people found that, consider that to be cheating, right? 68% of people found that, anything around physical acts like kissing or touching, or, something more intimate like that, is considered cheating. And so you want to find out what's going on, like what does he consider it, and what do you consider it, and have a conversation around that so that you can get on the same page. That way you both know, right? If you're like, oh, I feel like if you're like flirting with other women and doing this, like, to me, I consider that cheating, right? And you say that to him, and he's like, oh, that's ridiculous. I can't believe you consider, that's a red flag suddenly. And you go, okay, so you're going to be flirting with other women while we're in a relationship. I'm glad I know that in the dating phase, so I can run away now, or, we can work this out and talk about it or whatever. And actually have a conversation so you know what's going on with this person, right? You're not, he doesn't start doing it and then you find out that he's okay with flirting with other people in a relationship, right? So the next one is around marriage, right? So the question is, what do you think about getting married? And so I want to give you a quick stat on this as well, because I've done a whole bunch of stuff around looked at all the different stats around this. And one of the things that they found is that around 61% of men, so depending on which research you look at, they've done a lot of different research. With younger men, they found, I read a research report a while back that was like around 87%, but all men combined, what they found is around 61% of men can look at marriage as one of their like major life goals that they have. And so, there was a woman that came to me. It was a few months back, where she was like, she'd been seeing this guy for 3 years, and they never had a conversation about marriage until, I was like, hey, you need to talk to him about this. Right. And she talked to him about it, and he was like, yeah, I don't believe in marriage. Right. And they'd been together for 3 years, and that was something that she really, really wanted, and it's important that you find that kind of stuff out, because what tends to happen, what generally happens with people, is that we're just really attracted to them, and we just throw, like, what most people do is they have really high standards, and then they get into a situation where they're really attracted to that person, and they throw all their standards out the window, and they go, oh, I'll take this guy and we can work anything out. And the guy's like, yeah, but I don't want marriage and all this other thing. She's like, I can convince him, right? And you're like, it's better to like think about this stuff and have conversations and look for red flags and make sure that you're getting into a good situation from the very beginning. And if you do that, things are so much easier, because you're on the same page. And then the little things, the little problems that you have aren't as big of a deal, because you can work through those. But if you have big deal breakers like marriage, that'll stop everything. That'll stop everything. And maybe you're overly invested. And so you need to find that stuff out early. I'm not going to harp on that anymore. So let's talk about number 5. And by the way, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask those questions in the chat. I see there's a few people giving me great compliments here. So Patricia says, you look really swell in your outfit. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Let's see. Patricia says, hi, little brother. I'm actually your older brother is what's going on here. I don't know why you think I'm a little brother. So anyway, number 5 is looking for his desire and passion and fire in life, right? And what does he really have that he's passionate about? And you just ask him, like, what are you passionate about? And this is really important. Harvard Business Review actually did a study on this, and they found that men who have a strong passion in their life, they end up having more successful relationships. Their relationships are more satisfying. They have more intimacy in their relationships. They're more connected. They have a more like emotional connection with their partner. And so you want to find out, what is he passionate about? Does he have any passion? Does he not have any passion? Does he have a passion that he hasn't looked at in a long time? And is that something that he's interested in rekindling? It's so important for men to have a passion and purpose in their life. And I'm sure that you've probably experienced this as well. Do you find men who have a passion in their lives more attractive? Tell me in the chat. Do you find men who are passionate more attractive? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat. So number 6, let's talk about number 6 is really, do your lifestyles mix together? Like, do you have a good mix in your lifestyles? Can you fit together? This isn't as important as you'd think it is, but if it's there, it's really valuable, right? So if it's not there, it's something that you can work through, and usually you guys start adapting together to a certain degree each other's lives, especially the more you become connected. But if it is there, that can be a really, really powerful connection piece from the very beginning. And so you ask him, like, what do you do in your free time, right? Which, again, it can feel like a little bit of a boring question, but it can be so important. And what you're really looking for initially is just breadth, right? So like number of different things, just ask them about different things, talk about things that you like to do and talk about a bunch of them, and just see if any of them click and if there's any connection there with them. Because if you can actually find like a legitimate, genuine question, sometimes people do this thing where you're like, I'm into, underwater basket weaving, right? And the other person's like, oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I'm really into that too. But the other person's not really into it. They're just saying it because they, want to like agree with you or whatever. But if you can find like actual genuine things, it can be really, really powerful. Stanford University did a study on this and found that 65% of successful couples share at least 2 major leisure activities together, right? So it's not completely necessary, but if you've got it, it can like really enhance your relationship a lot, because mixed lifestyles are like, mixing your lifestyles together is like, it's like fitting puzzle pieces together. If you like get that good fit, it can be like a strong glue, and then you're like, I don't know, maybe that's not a great metaphor. Anyway, moving on. And by the way, if you're interested in getting coaching with me and my team, go to MatthewCoast.com. You can jump on a free call with some of my relationship advisors, and they can talk to you about, getting help in your dating relationship life. If you're having dating problems, relationship problems, any of that kind of stuff, we can help you. Just go to MatthewCoast.com and sign up for a free call with my team. Okay, so number 7. Number 7 is, how does he handle conflict? So, like, how does he deal with things when things get tough, when he starts getting stressed out? Like, you want to find this out because it'll tell you a lot about what your relationship's going to look like. And so, all you do is you just say, hey, like, what do you do when you feel stressed out, right? That's the question you want to ask. What do you do when you feel stressed out? And the way that he deals with stress, they've done a whole bunch of different studies on this. I think the Relationship Research Institute did this, where they found that like the way that people deal with stress, it doesn't really change over time. Like, there might be little changes that happen where they deal with stress in different ways, but for the most part, how he deals with stress now is likely how he's going to deal with stress in the future, right? And so there are things that you can look for around this, which are like, does he disappear and hide in a box, right? Does he go away, right? So think about it like a storm, right? Stress is like a storm. Some people, when it starts storming out, they like go underneath their covers and, like hide in their bed underneath their covers and like, peer out and try to just hide away. And then other people like to, go outside and dance in the rain. And the question is, what is it that he likes? And, none of it's necessarily bad. The question is, what does he do and how long does he do it? And how would that impact you if you were in a relationship with him? And so you're just getting a clue as to like what's going on. A lot of guys tend to, want to have like a man cave or a place that they go where they de-stress, where they regulate their emotions, that kind of a thing. And so it's just a common male thing to do. So going back over the questions again, the first one is, how often do you think, you like to, or what do you think is normal in terms of like talking to somebody or messaging somebody when you're dating them? Or, how often do you like to talk to somebody when you're dating them? How often do you like to talk to someone when you're in a relationship? Something along those lines. It's really, really powerful. I call this the communication blueprint. It'll help you so much. Number two is just finding out like what's something that makes him feel connected when he's in a relationship, or what's something that makes him feel loved. Number three is, what do you consider cheating? Because it's such an important question, and so many people don't know this until it's too late. So you want to find this out early. Number four is, what do you think about getting married? This is basically a, values question. It's it's figuring out if you're on the same page around marriage and if you're in alignment or not, right? Like I said, 61% of men, of all men out there, they found see marriage as a major life goal that they have in their lives. So number five is, what are you passionate about, right? Guys that are more passionate have better relationships. Number six is, how do you spend your free time? Do you have things that you can do together? Or, sometimes it's like your lives end up merging and you start finding things that you like to do together, right? Like sometimes people, one person might be into movies or shows and the other person isn't, but they end up, joining on movies and shows because now they're living together. But if you can find a couple things initially, that can help so much, especially when you're dating. Number seven is, how does he handle conflict, right? And so you ask, what do you do when you feel stressed out? And such a great question to ask, because you get to find out how he deals with things, right? And if you want another tip on that, find out if he's somebody that either like stonewalls or blames, because both of those things are really, really bad and can ruin relationships. Because if you're blaming everybody else for your problems, they're never going to change. Right? It's people that take responsibility and ownership of their problems that have the most, they're the best relationships and get through their stuff. So, Kim says, you obviously missed my compliment. Kim says, you've got a nice smile. Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate you. And I appreciate that. Yeah. So if you have any questions, go ahead and ask your questions. Catherine says, I'm from London, England. I'm actually in London right now. I'm over in the Stratford area at the moment. Danny says, will you recap? I just did, Danny. All right. Patricia said, you're my older brother and you are very funny. Well, I appreciate that. All right. So questions. What questions do you have? Stacy says, why would a guy lie to you for 6 months? Because he put on an act and he didn't, he wants to maintain looking good, right? So a lot of people, it depends on like what makes people, like a lot of people, one of their biggest things that they want to avoid is feeling embarrassed or humiliated in public or around people, right? And so sometimes, like especially when you're first dating somebody, a lot of people put on acts, right? They're like, it's like their best behavior. Like guys, you'll see this all the time. Guys will like take women out to like ridiculous things that they can't really afford, right? Because they're trying to impress the woman. They're trying to make her feel like he's a good guy for her to date and be in a relationship with, but it's not something that's sustainable or that he can maintain longer term. You'd have to tell us more about like what he was actually lying about for us to have a conversation, or what you want to do about this, right? In order to move forward. Some people, right? There's like a spectrum of liars out there, right? So most people, like there's some people that are just, they just lie, right? That's what they do. They lie about everything. They lie because they can. They lie because they can get away with it. They lie because they want to, like, it feels good to them to lie, right? And that's there's a percentage of people, I'd say it's probably a fairly small percentage of people that do that. And then there's this percentage of people that will break their value system to lie depending on the situation, right? Like, so like, let's say you went to the other side and it was like, somebody was holding a gun to your child's head and they were like, if you tell me the truth, you can save your child. But if you lie to me, or no, if you lie to me, you can save your child. But if you tell me the truth, I'll shoot him. Right. If you do that, it's like most people would lie in that scenario. Right. Most people would lie to save their child or, whatever. And then there's a spectrum in between there of people that are lying for different reasons. And because certain things make it so that they feel like it's okay for them to do it. Right. And it's actually the same with a lot of things like cheating. Cheating is the same, has a similar scale, right? Where there's some people they're going to cheat no matter what you do. Right. And then there's people that will cheat depending on how painful things are or how much they feel like they can justify it or, whatever. Right. And so there's a spectrum on everything. And the question is, where does this man lie in that spectrum? Is he somebody that lies all the time? Is he constantly lying? Is this one thing that he's lied about and he doesn't lie about other things? Right. Is this a pattern? Or is this like a one-time thing where he just did it because he didn't want to feel embarrassed, right? And so that's kind of what you want to ask yourself to figure out, how good of a guy this person is to be in a relationship with, and how big was the lie, right? Was it a huge lie? Was it something that's like, I can't really forgive this, or was it a small lie? That's what you want to do. That's what you want to look at, Stacy. Great question, though. Trisha says, what if there is a crocodile in the man cave? Well, I would suggest that you don't go into the crocodile area. I mean, unless you know how to like wrangle a crocodile. Patricia, do you know how to wrangle a crocodile? Because if you do, you can go into the man cave area. If you don't, you should probably leave the man cave area alone. That's what I would suggest around the crocodile. Okay. Pretty Mary Cherry Brown Eyes. That's an interesting handle and name. Asks, what do you think of online dating? I think that online dating is one of the easiest, fastest, and best ways to meet a new partner. However, with the caveat that it is a train wreck on there, right? But if you have good strategy for your online dating and how you approach it, it's really easy to end up meeting a great guy, if you're consistent with it. If you don't have a strategy on there's a few things you want to know about online dating. One is that 60% of people online are on online dating, like Tinder, these dating apps and stuff. They're not single. They're not. Most of the people on the dating apps are not single, right? They're most of them, right? Only like 40% are actually single. And then out of that 40%, only a small percentage of those guys are even, a good potential match or fit for you. And so the key with online dating is that you need to, weed out all the tire kickers and the time wasters and the, guys that are cheating on their wives and the guys that just want to be pen pals and the, the liars and the guys that's like, sitting in his basement, holding a rubber chicken and, the scammer that's, on there. And, you got to you have to have a system to, weed out all those guys really, really quickly. If you want a great system, you can talk to my team, go to matthewcoast.com, sign up for a call to talk to my team about coaching. We can help you get through that pretty quickly. And I have a great system for it. So it's a great question. It's, honestly, I think in a lot of ways, meeting people in the real world is better. But for a lot of people, they just don't have the time in the current day and age. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to do it. You know, it takes a lot of time to go out and meet people. And if you do online dating, it's a lot faster and you can meet a lot of people very, very quickly. And if you have a good system, you can weed them out and meet really great guys so that all of your potential dates are really, really good. So, so yeah, that's what I would suggest. So Catherine Hill says, why do some men mess about on dating sites? You text and talk, and after a week, they simply vanish. Well, the reason is because most people on there are wasting your time, right? Like I was just saying, 60% of people on dating apps aren't single, right? They aren't even single. Man, we had a woman that was in our community who actually admitted to the entire community. She's like, yeah, I'm married and I'm on dating apps and I don't meet with any of the guys. I just, talk to them and chat and flirt a little bit because I enjoy talking to guys and I want to be connected to guys. And, like that's happening on the men's side as well. There's a lot of guys on there that are just wasting your time. My suggestion is that you don't take a man seriously until he has earned it, right? He has to earn the privilege of you taking him seriously. And the way that he earns that privilege of you taking him seriously is by him investing in you, pursuing you, moving forward with you, communicating with you, taking you out on dates, right? If you don't go on a date with a guy, pretend like he's not even a real person, right? These guys aren't real people until you actually meet them and you go on a real date. He could be, like I said, he could be some, Nigerian scammer sitting in a basement somewhere holding a rubber chicken up in the air going, no, I'm going to take this woman's money, right? And so he's like building this connection with you over weeks and months, right? And stop doing any of that stuff. Like, don't do any of that. My suggestion, one of the rules that I have, if you go through my stuff, one of the rules that you'll find in there is that you should not talk to a guy for more than 2 weeks. 2 weeks is the absolute max, right? Ideally 1 week, right? Before you stop talking to him. Just stop talking to him and tell him that if he wants, that you're really busy and that you'd love to make some time for him if he wants to like meet up with you or take you on a date or something, right? And that way you don't let these men waste your time, right? Most of them will waste your time. And so you can't take any of them seriously, right? You see a guy on there, he's got great photos, you get all googly eyed over him, you got the love drunk goggles on, you're like, oh, this man's so amazing and wonderful. And then he like disappears on you because he wasn't even real to begin with, right? You just have to assume that he's not real to begin with and make him earn you. He's got to earn your time. He's got to earn your attention. He's got to earn your interest. He's got to earn you getting emotional in any regard around him, right? And until he has earned that privilege of being an important person in your life, you can't take him seriously at all. Does that make sense to you, Catherine? I hope that makes sense. If you have a question, go ahead and ask a question. The best way to do it is to make sure that there is a question mark at the end of the question. So, is there any other questions that we have here? Looks like no, there are not. Oh, here we go. So Maria's got one. So Maria says, Matthew, I would love to know if you find it difficult to date, as the female would maybe feel intimidated a little, like what she's thinking, and she wouldn't be able to act properly thinking that. So you're actually talking about me dating. I'm actually in a relationship. I'm not dating. But when I was dating, I would say that sometimes, there's definitely like, if when I would tell women what I do, there's some women that are just like, I'm out, like, I'm not in for this. I'm out, let me go. I'm like, I'm going away. Cause cause there's a bunch of misconceptions out there, right? There's a bunch of misconceptions about the dating world, and for good reason, right? A lot of coaches teach a lot of manipulation. They teach a lot of game playing. They teach a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm a big fan of like authentic communication, authentic connection, like actually having real conversations with people and cutting through all the nonsense and getting to what's real and talking about that. And so, people don't know that though, unless they like, you want to hear some fun stories. I dated this girl one time, and she sent me the forward text message. It was so funny. I was dating this woman, and she one day she like sent me the forward text message, right? And I like received it, and I was like, I was like, did she just send me the forward text message, right? And I was like, how do I respond to the fact that she bought my program, went through it, got the text message from it, and sent it to me? I'm like, should this be like a joke thing, or is it like, I'm like, I don't know how to respond to this. So I ended up meeting up with her. I like messaged her back and whatever, and we, like scheduled to meet up, and we met up together. And she was like, I don't think what you do works. And I was like, what? And I was like, well, you did just send me my text message that I teach people to send other people. Oh, I don't know what's funny if that's not funny. I find that hilarious. Yeah, I've had some interesting things. I mean, I get like a lot of women know me, like I was on a flight to Colorado, I think one time, and I had a woman that was like the flight attendant, like left me a note, and she was like, "Hey, Matthew Coast, I recognized you as soon as you got on the plane, and I just want to tell you, like, what you're doing is like amazing work, and you're making such a difference with for women in the world, And I was just like, like, oh, that's awesome, But I get that a lot, and so yeah, I'm not dating though. But yeah, that was a fun question. Thanks, Maria. Okay, so let's see. So Giri says, "Sir, I tried avoiding someone who added me as a friend on Facebook. We were seriously talking, but now I found out that he's got 10 accounts using his brand name. And I'm sick with it. Is there any way I can get them off my Facebook chat, please?" I'm not sure. I mean, you can block them. You can block people, right? Just start blocking people. You can block people on Facebook. Just block people there, Giri. That's what I would do if I were you. Okay, so Kali says, after how many months a couple should get married? It's a great question, Kali. I would say that there's a timeline for all of that. So a guy, generally speaking, knows within about 6 months, right? They've done a whole bunch of studies around this, and they found that unanimously, around like 99%, men know by the 6-month mark, 6 to 8 month mark, what kind of a relationship they ultimately want to have with you, right? So if you've gone like 10 months, you should definitively have the, like, what are you looking for conversation, because he knows what kind of a relationship he ultimately wants to have with you. That doesn't mean that he wants to get married immediately or that you should get married immediately, right? But within like by the year mark, you should be like talking about it. You should be having conversations. This should be on the radar. You should, have an idea about this. You should talk to him about, where he's at with it, how long, he he's, where he's looking at in terms of like how long he wants to do this. If he's avoiding the conversation, that means that he's afraid that the answer that he's going to give you is something that you're not going to like, which is usually that he's not actually looking to get married to you, right? So 6 month mark, he knows. 6 to 8 month mark, he knows for sure. 10 months, I'd say by that time you should definitely have had that conversation. I suggest you start those kinds of conversations early on, but he's not going to know for a while. For most guys, they won't know. He's got to find out about you. He's got to learn about you. He's got to spend time around you to really know. And then usually somewhere around like the year to 2 year, somewhere in there is usually when like most couples end up getting engaged. Some people do it before that, some people do it after that, but that's usually the general rule. And then sometime after that is usually when people get married. And so by the year mark, if you hit a year with a guy and you haven't had the conversation, he's been avoiding it, any of that kind of stuff, that's a giant red flag, right? So by the year mark, you should have conversations. You should know where this is going. There should be a general timeline. You should talk about it. You should have, talked to him about how he feels and, what he thinks. And he'll tell you, a lot of guys will tell you, they'll be like, they'll try to do what we call kicking the ball down the field, which means that they'll try to avoid doing it, or they're like, yeah, I need to know you for at least 3 years, 5 years. Like some guys will say that, and they're saying that because they're afraid, right? They're afraid of making a bad decision. They're afraid of ruining their lives. They're afraid that you're going to change, right? We had a woman earlier that was talking. She was like, why would a guy lie to me for 6 months? Well, women do the same thing. My cousin, actually, he's married. He knew this woman for like 8 years. And she was like, he said that she lied to him for the entire 8 years. Right. And so you want to make sure that you're screening this guy for his character through this entire process so that you make sure that you're getting into a great relationship. If you're interested in learning more about how to do that, like I said, go to MatthewCoast.com. You can talk to my team for free, see about coaching with us, see if it makes any sense. And, but I hope that makes sense there, Kali, in terms of the timeline. So let's see here. Mountain Streams, AJ says, Matthew, I met him after months of knowing each other on this platform. He flew thousands of kilometers to meet me. He has pretty much gone from talking to me hours a night to 5 seconds of text a day, still messages good night, etc. Has he changed his mind? Well, that's a conversation that you need to have with him, right? So if you've been talking to him for months and stuff like that, there could have been something that changed, right? He might feel differently about it. And if I were you, I'd have, like, you're past the point of like having a real, like, a lot of times people want to tiptoe around this stuff, right? They're like, where are the signs? Where are the clues, right? They want to be like a detective, right? And look for all the clues. And they're like, if I have this sign and this sign and that sign, it means this, right? And in my personal opinion, that's the worst way to do it. The best way to do it is to have, like, sit them down and just have a real conversation with them and be like, hey, I feel like something changed. Like, what's going on with you? Is everything okay? Right. And just see where he's at with it. He might make some excuses. He might, tiptoe around it. And if he does that, my suggestion is just to assume that something has changed with him and just give him some space, right? Live your life. If you're following my work, what you do is we have this thing called abundance dating, right? And until you are in a relationship with a man, there's a lot of things that you don't do, right? And one of the things that you don't do is you don't sleep with a guy. Another thing you don't do is you don't commit yourself to one man, right? There's a whole bunch of different things, right? Like, and so the point with this is that you want to keep your options open until one guy takes you off the market. And if that guy doesn't take you off the market, you don't commit to that one guy, right? The problem, we call it on the men's dating side, we call it one-itis, right? When you're like, there's like this one guy, right? And you just want him and that's all you want, right? And he hasn't earned that. He doesn't deserve that, right? He hasn't shown you with his words and actions that he deserves that. I mean, he's done a lot of cool things. He flew to come see you. That's really awesome that he did that, but what we look for isn't one-time grand gestures. We don't look for short-term things, right? We look for long-term consistency. We look for words and actions being in alignment and going in the same direction as you want it to go. Does that make sense? I'm just going to call you AJ. Does that make sense, AJ? So what you want is this guy is, you want him to be, you having, if you've talked to him for months, you want to make sure you're having these conversations with him. You want to make sure to be asking these questions. You want to make sure to be seeing what his character is like. The challenge with long distance things like this, where you're like just meeting some guy on an app and then, he's on a different country or another continent or, something like that, is that it's really easy for them to hide something from you that you won't know about, you won't see because you're not seeing them in real life. Can it work? Sure, absolutely. However, even if you're doing that with a guy, my suggestion is that you continue to do abundance dating until there's something serious that comes from it, right? That where he's like, hey, I'm moving to you, or, I want you to move to me, or whatever. Him moving to you is definitely better. Him coming to see you is good. But so I hope that makes sense with you, AJ. It's a challenging situation. It's tough when stuff like that happens. And, but it's, but I hope you got a lot out of this conversation around it. So let me know if you have any other questions. So Katie says, how can you lessen the chance of being ghosted? So that's a great question. And there's a lot of different things that you can do. One of the best things that you can do is, so first off, I want to mention that some people are going to ghost people no matter what, right? Some people, it's easier for people to just ghost people than it is for them to have conversations. And a lot of people lose it when they tell them they don't want to see them anymore. And guys everybody feels embarrassed. Women are actually 3 times more likely to ghost a guy than a guy is to ghost a woman. So it's not like, oh, men are just ghosting women and that's it. Women actually ghost men more than men ghost women. But there are a few things that you can do, right? So the first thing is, if you want to make sure that guys are showing up on dates, one of the things that you can do before the date is do a video chat, right? Do a video call. It's one of the best things that you can do. Guys are less likely to flake if you do that. Second thing, like in terms of like ghosting in dating, like I said, there's only so much you can do. Some guys are going to ghost no matter what, but the best thing that you can do is building a real connection with them, right? Building an emotional connection. Usually people ghost because they aren't really that interested, right? They lose interest. Some people, they might just forget about it. You're not important to them. And so they just don't think about you. And, and then when you like pop up on their radar, they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with that problem, and I don't want to see her again. So they just don't respond or they don't message back, right? That's what most people are doing, is that they're avoiding confrontation. They're avoiding doing the mature grown-up adult thing by telling you that they're not interested. And so they just kind of disappear on you. And so Some people are going to do that. Like we were talking about the spectrum before, where there's like some people are going to ghost no matter what, right? And then there's this line of different people who will ghost based on certain criteria, right? So, for instance, some people, most people, in fact, I would say, don't consider it ghosting if they're talking to you online and then they just stop talking to you, right? Most people do not consider that ghosting, right? They don't consider it ghosting until they're actually like going on dates with a person. And so online for a lot of people, it's just like, whatever, it doesn't mean anything, right? So they don't feel like it's a big deal if they just disappear, right? So some people feel that way, right? Others, they're like, once you start dating, that's when it's ghosting. So I'm going to tell them. Other people, they don't feel like it's ghosting or that it's that big of a deal, or it's not against their values to ghost unless you're like in a relationship with each other, you're physically intimate with each other, something like that, right? And so it's a spectrum of thing, and the way that you get somebody more interested and wanting to stay around and wanting to be there is through emotional connection, right? All the rest of the stuff is not important. There's an emotional needs model, right? And the biggest emotional need that keeps people around is the emotional need of excitement, the emotional need of variety, right? So it's like the chemistry, right? It's the same emotional need. Chemistry is the emotional need of excitement, right? Most people choose a partner based on the excitement level, which is literally one of the worst ways to choose a partner, but that's what they do. And so building an emotional connection, specifically one around variety and excitement, is the best way to keep a guy from ghosting, because he's going to be interested, because he's going to feel a connection, because he's not going to want to leave the situation at all. Does that make sense, Katie? So, okay. Let's see. Let's see. Janae says, how do I remove this curse? How do I remove this curse? I've been cursed. I'm sad for you, Janae, that you've been cursed. I don't like it when people are cursed. I seem to have quite a few interests, but there's always something. There are red flags. Others, it's clear they're just interested in sex. Will there ever be a right guy? Yes, Janae, there will be a right guy. And what you need to do is have faith that there will be a right guy, and educate yourself on how to quickly figure out who the wrong guys are and who the right guys are. The biggest challenge that most women have is that they go for the wrong guys, and then they're like, hey, all the wrong, every guy meets the wrong guy, right? And suddenly they think they're cursed, right? So my suggestion is you get rid of that curse, right? You can simply get rid of the curse, and you can become blessed, you can become lucky, and you can create that for yourself by getting educated and choosing better men and learning how to weed them out a lot faster. That's the fastest way to become lucky in love, lucky in dating, blessed in love and dating, right? If you want to be blessed, if you want to be lucky, then educate yourself and find a good system. Personally, I'm a little bit biased. I'll admit to you, Janae, I'm a little bit biased about this, but I think my system is the best system for this. Don't tell anybody about it. No, I mean, you can tell people if you want. But if you're interested, I suggest you go to MatthewCoast.com, sign up for a call with my team. They'll see if you're a good match for coaching. They'll explain it to you and all that kind of stuff. So you can see if it's something that you're interested in. And I have a whole system around it. You want to focus on character, right? Because what most people do out there is they go for the thing that's most exciting. And the thing that's most exciting, they've actually done a whole bunch of research on this. And my own personal research has backed this up, which is that the things that create the most chemistry, the things that make you the most excited are often the exact opposite of what makes a partner a healthy partner for you to be with, right? Does that make sense? So the things, it's literally the opposite often, right? The things that are the most exciting about somebody are often the things that make them the least likely to be a good partner, right? I had a woman that came to me. Let me give you an example. I had a woman that came to me once because she was having all these problems with dating, right? She was a widow. She was married for I think it was like 35 years or something like that. And her husband passed away. And she was like, yeah, I'm having all these problems with dating, right? And my model of how I do coaching is around something called the emotional needs, right? And so the first thing I do is I look at what emotional need are you seeking when you seek a partner, right? And so she was like, what she would say was, she was like, oh, I'm so like, like guys are, I'm looking for somebody that's as much fun as I am, that's as exciting as me, that, I want to have a great time and I want them to be, so much fun. And, like I want to do all these different things, right? And when she's telling me about this, I'm like, this is the emotional need of excitement. This is the emotional need of variety. That's what she's seeking in a partner, right? And she was talking about like this guy she went on a date with, and he was so exciting and so much fun, but and like he took her to all these different places and they slept together, and it was like the most like ecstatic, like amazing, mind-blowing sex and she's ever had. And she was like, oh no, I awakened like my entire life, right? And she was like, and then he disappeared, and like I never saw him again. She was like, what am I doing wrong? And I was like, well, tell me about like your ex-husband. And she was like, oh, he was my soulmate, right? He was like the perfect guy for me. And I was like, well, how did you meet him? Like, what was he like? And she was like, well, he was kind of like, he was like a guy that, it was like, we just happened to meet, and he was really kind of in his head and like very structured, like the opposite of me, and he would, he was, I think he was like an accountant or something like that. And she was like, but when I was around him, I would like pull this other side out, right? This fun and, this playful side out of him, and it was like we were the perfect match. And I was like, you realize that the thing that you're going for is the opposite of what you said your husband, your soulmate, was like, right? Your soulmate was stable. He was logical. He was, responsible. He was accountability. He was all these different things. And the guys that you're going for are excitement, fun, variety, doing all these different things, right? She was like, yeah, I'm going for the wrong person. I keep going for the wrong person, right? And that's what I found most women are doing who are having a problem. Janae, you're not cursed. You're not cursed. You're going for the wrong guys. And we can help you with that. If you want to learn how to screen out the wrong guys and start screening in the right guys, just go to matthewcoast.com and talk to my coaching team. We can help you out with that. So, okay. Let's see. Kali says, what does to be ghosted mean, please? It means that somebody just disappears on you, right? There's like a bunch of phrases and sayings around it. Like, if he ghosts you, just bury the dead, let him die, like let him, whatever. Right. And it's like somebody that really, what it used to mean was that you had a relationship with someone and they just disappeared, right? That happens, right? People are in a relationship for years sometimes, and then they just disappear, right? And it's like this really bad feeling. What it's become this giant variety of different things where people are like, they talk to a guy on the dating app one time and then he stops talking to her and she's like, oh, he ghosted me, right? But originally it meant that a guy disappears from a relationship, never talks to you again, won't respond to your messages. In modern dating, I'd say that it probably is considered, if you've gone on a couple dates with a guy and he doesn't tell you that he doesn't want to see you again, but he just disappears, I'd consider that ghosting. So anything from that point on, I would consider ghosting. Anything before that point and on, I would say is just like, I would say that that person doesn't deserve to for you to put so much emotional investment into it that you feel hurt by him disappearing on you. I mean, you can't always control it. Some people still feel hurt by this, but if I were you, I wouldn't allow them. I wouldn't give them the power over you to allow them to make you feel hurt. Does that make sense? Okay, so one of the biggest things that I see happens with a lot of women is that they just um, they're having a hard time with feeling strong and powerful in the relationships. And so I like to, or in the dating space, they have a hard time like really strengthening their voice. And so one of the things I like to do in these is I like to end with the Queen's mantra, which is we do this 3 times every time we say it. So take a deep breath in and out. And we'll go ahead and say the Queen's mantra, which is, I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. I am valuable. I am worthy. I deserve to be cherished. You want to say it 3 times every time you do it. And I want you to leave here remembering that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that your voice does matter, that you shouldn't allow men into your life that are going to walk on you, that are going to step on you, that are going to treat you badly. Start changing the way that you see yourself. Start seeing yourself as sacred. Start seeing yourself, your time, your energy, your emotion, your life as being sacred. And if you believed truly that you were a sacred, divine, feminine being on this planet, what would a guy have to do to show you that he was worthy of your time, attention, love, effort, investment? What would he have to do to show you that? My guess is that you wouldn't be just sleeping with guys. You wouldn't be getting overly emotionally invested in guys that you haven't even met yet. You wouldn't be, getting one-itis, overly focused on some guy that's not willing to commit to you. You wouldn't be committing to men that aren't committed to you. And so I want you to leave here today remembering that you are worthy, remembering that you are valuable, remembering that you are sacred. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I'll speak with you again soon. Have a beautiful day, evening, night, morning, wherever you are in the world. And always remember that you are worth it. Talk to you soon.